Walk into a forest. Move quietly. Give it enough time, and almost everything alive in there will disappear before you get close enough to see it clearly. Birds flush from branches. Deer melt into tree lines. Small mammals vanish into undergrowth. Even insects seem to scatter. The forest empties around you like a wave moving outward from wherever you stand. This is not instinct aimed at you personally. It is something older and stranger than that, something that runs so deep in the nervous systems of wild animals that researchers have started calling it the landscape of fear. And understanding why it exists, why creatures that have never been hunted by a human being still flee at the sight or smell of one, reveals something about our species that most of us have never fully reckoned with. We are the most dangerous predator this planet has ever produced. Not the fastest, not the strongest, not the biggest, but the most dangerous, by a margin that is not close. And the animal kingdom, at some level, knows it. Start with what biologists call the predator recognition problem. Every prey animal on Earth needs to recognize threats without having personally experienced them. A deer that waits to learn from experience whether wolves are dangerous does not survive long enough to pass on genes. Fear of predators needs to be either hardwired from birth or learned extremely quickly from social cues, watching other animals flee, hearing alarm calls, smelling the scent markers predators leave behind. Most prey species run a combination of both. Some threats are recognized instinctively from birth. Others are learned through observation and encoded into behavior within the first weeks of life. Humans fit into this system in a way that is genuinely unusual. Studies testing naive animals, animals raised in complete isolation from humans with no prior exposure, have found that many species show immediate fear responses to human scent, human voices, or human silhouettes without any prior learning. Mountain lions raised in captivity with no human contact still show measurable stress hormone spikes when exposed to recorded human voices. Prey species in wildlife reserves with no history of hunting still maintain larger flight distances from humans than from lions and leopards. The fear is not entirely learned. Some of it appears to be inherited. This makes sense only if you consider how long humans have been hunting. Modern humans have been apex predators for at least 300,000 years. For most of that time, every large animal on Earth that shared territory with us was under hunting pressure. Not occasional hunting, systematic, coordinated, technologically assisted hunting that no other predator on Earth could match. We hunted in groups. We used projectile weapons that allowed killing from distances no other predator could reach. We tracked animals across days and dozens of miles using cognitive abilities no other species possessed. We hunted at night when most predators rested. We hunted in winter when food was scarce and animals were weakened. We hunted every species we encountered without the ecological constraints that limit other predators. We were not specialized. We would eat almost anything. The result, over hundreds of thousands of years, was a sustained selection pressure unlike anything the animal kingdom had previously experienced. Animals that did not fear humans died. Their genes did not survive. Animals that fled at the first sign of human presence, scent, sound, silhouette, survived and reproduced. Over enough generations, fear of humans became encoded not just as learned behavior, but as inherited predisposition in species after species after species. We bred the fear into them by killing everyone who wasn't afraid of us. A 2019 study published in the journal Ecological tested this directly. Researchers played recordings of human voices, lions, leopards, dogs, and local non-predatory species to wild animals in South Africa and measured their responses. Animals fled from human voices more consistently and at greater distances than from any other sound, including lions. The fear response to recorded human speech was 40% stronger than the response to lion vocalizations in some species. The animals in this study were not domesticated, they were wild. They had not been hunted by humans in the area of the study, but the inherited fear was still running. This has a name now in ecology. Researchers call it the human super-predator effect, and it extends far beyond simple flight responses. Animals change their entire behavioral ecology in the presence of human activity. Nocturnal behavior increases dramatically in areas with human presence. Large mammals that would normally be active during daylight hours shift almost entirely to nighttime activity when humans are nearby, effectively ceding the day to us completely. Home range patterns shift, breeding behavior changes. Animals in areas with human activity show elevated stress hormone baselines even when no direct hunting or harassment is occurring. The mere knowledge that humans are present, communicated through scent, sound, or indirect signs of activity, is enough to restructure how entire animal communities organize their lives. And then there's the megafauna extinction record, which is the most brutal evidence of all. When modern humans arrived in Australia roughly 50,000 years ago, Australia had 24 species of large animals, megafauna weighing over 100 pounds. Within a few thousand years of human arrival, 23 of those 24 species were extinct. When humans crossed into the Americas roughly 15,000 years ago, North and South America had dozens of megafauna: mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, giant beavers, American lions, American cheetahs, horses, camels. Within a few thousand years, most of them were gone. The pattern repeats on every landmass and island chain where modern humans arrived for the first time. The animals that had the least prior exposure to humans, the ones whose evolutionary history had not included us, died fastest. They had no inherited fear. They had no learned wariness. They simply did not run. The species that survived our expansion were the ones that had been living alongside us long enough to learn. African megafauna, elephants, lions, hippos, rhinos, buffalo, survived in far greater numbers than the megafauna of the Americas or Australia, not because they were harder to kill, because they had been evolving alongside human hunters for hundreds of thousands of years and had already encoded the appropriate level of fear. They knew what we were. The mammoths did not. Modern wildlife researchers have documented this inherited naivety in island species that evolved without any human presence. When humans first arrive on isolated islands, the local wildlife often shows no fear response at all. Birds land on researchers' shoulders. Seals allow themselves to be approached to within touching distance. Giant tortoises show no alarm response to human presence. This behavior, which wildlife biologists call ecological naivety, is not stupidity. It is the absence of a fear that was never needed. These animals never needed to fear a bipedal primate because no bipedal primate had ever reached their island before. Within decades of human arrival, the species that survived were the ones that developed fear fastest, either through learning or through the brutal selection pressure of being hunted. The ones that didn't learn fast enough were gone. What makes this particularly striking is how quickly the fear can rebuild. Wildlife studies in areas where hunting has been banned for decades show measurable increases in animal boldness within single generations. Animals begin to reduce their flight distances, return to daytime activity patterns, and allow closer human approach. The fear is not permanent. It is maintained by ongoing pressure. Remove the hunting pressure, and animals begin, generation by generation, to recalibrate. In Goronzosa National Park in Mozambique, where large predators including lions were nearly eliminated during the Civil War and wildlife populations collapsed, the reintroduction of protection and the slow recovery of animal populations has shown animals gradually losing some of their extreme wariness as the pressure that maintained it eases. But even in the safest protected areas, even with no hunting for generations, most wild animals still maintain a significant flight distance from humans that they do not maintain from other predators. The baseline fear runs too deep, accumulated over too many hundreds of thousands of years to fully disappear in a few generations of peace. You walk into a forest, and the forest goes quiet around you, not because of anything you have done, because of everything your species did for 300,000 years before you were born. The animals are not reacting to you. They are reacting to the accumulated memory of every human being who ever walked through a forest before you. Every hunt, every kill, every generation of selection pressure that encoded the appropriate response to a two-legged, tool-carrying, disturbingly quiet, and disturbingly persistent creature that appeared on this planet and proceeded to eat almost everything it encountered. You carry the reputation of your entire species, and in the nervous systems of every wild animal that disappears when you approach, that reputation is very much intact.